What's up, Star Wars nerds, and welcome to another episode of Brett on Fett. On today's episode, we'll be counting down the top 5 most important characters missing from the Vintage Collection from Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Let's get to it. Welcome back to the channel. This is episode 90 of Brett on Fett, and it's part 2 of my new series M.I.A.F.F, or Missing in Action Figure Form, where I break down the most important or most iconic characters still missing in action figure form for the Vintage Collection from the Star Wars films and TV series. And for this second part, we're going to be breaking down those missing from Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Now remember, for this series, it's more about what I consider to be the most significant characters from each film or TV series not to be made in the Vintage Collection yet, and it's not necessarily the same thing as the figures I want most made from these films or TV series. But before I go over my top 5 M.I.A.F.F from Attack of the Clones, just like I did in part 1, I want to quickly go over my personal top 5 favorite figures currently in TVC from Attack of the Clones. So let's take a look. Actually, before we get into my top 5 favorite current releases, let's quickly run through all of the Vintage Collection figures from Attack of the Clones, starting with VC29 Kit Fisto, VC30 Zam Wessel, VC31 Obi-Wan Kenobi, VC32 Anakin Skywalker Peasant Disguise, VC33 Padme Amidala Peasant Disguise, VC34 Jango Fett, VC35 Mace Windu, VC36 Senate Guard, VC37 Super Battle Droid, VC45 Clone Trooper, VC49 Fayek Search Jedi Knight, VC51 Barriss Offee Jedi Padawan, VC109 Clone Trooper Lieutenant, VC244 Anakin Skywalker Padawan, VC307 Count Dooku, VC309 Phase 1 Clone Trooper, and then you have the unnumbered special Brian's Toy exclusive Jocasta Nu, and then finally the new Jango Fett in the deluxe box. So that's everything we already currently have, or at least know is on the way for Attack of the Clones from the Vintage Collection. Alright, kicking off my top 5 favorite current Vintage Collection releases from Attack of the Clones. At number 5, I have the Super Battle Droid VC37. And here he is, and the reason I chose this one as number 5 is that it's a great figure and card back combo. I love this card back. It's one of my favorites. It's really awesome. And the figure is pretty good too. I like the amount of weathering they use. It's just the right amount. I don't know why they put a blaster pistol in his hand. That was very strange. They don't use blaster pistols. Their blasters are built into their arm. But anyways, it's VC37. There's a look at the very first release and a look at some of the rest of the wave that he came in. Great release. At number 4, I have Count Dooku, VC307. Now I'm cheating a little bit here because I do not have this figure in hand and he is not out in the US yet, but he has been released in Australia and Asia, and I've seen enough reviews of folks that got him by import to know that it is a great figure, easily a top 5 figure for me. Maybe higher if I had him in hand to see for myself, but based on what I've seen, he's awesome. And so I went ahead and put him at number 4. Now, had he not already been released, he surely would have been number 1 on my list for missing in action figure form. But since he is out, he's not on that list, which is a great thing. So very glad to finally have Dooku in the Vintage Collection. At number 3, I have Jango Fett, VC34. This is the original release of Jango Fett. Now, of course, we have an all-new version coming, unfortunately, in a deluxe box. But that is not out. I have not seen any reviews in hand of that figure yet, so I can't judge that one. But I'm going to go ahead and put this one at number 3 because it's a slightly outdated figure, but it's an amazing card back. Just an amazing action pose there. It looks so good. And the figure looks good as well. His helmet is a little bit elongated, such as those old Mandalorian helmets look like back then when this came out. But I do like that he has that cloak. It is VC34. There's a look at the original release there on the back and some of the other wave But yeah, this is an awesome release. It still has pretty high value on the secondary market, but I'm definitely looking forward to the new version of this. I just wish they had put it on a card back. Coming in at number 2 on my list, I have Kit Fisto VC29, and this is just another great figure and card back combo. I love the image used of Kit Fisto there. You know, they could have gone with the smiling Kit Fisto, but I thought that might have been a little bit cheesy. I prefer the serious pose there. And this mold is great. I like the way they used the combination of plastic and cloth goods, and really good for the time. Sure, it could be better today, but it was very good at the time. VC29, there's an image of his very first release. There's a look at some of the rest of the wave. He's a cool alien, he's a cool Jedi, and Hasbro did a great job packaging this all together, so easily a number 2 for me. And my number 1 favorite current TVC release from Attack of the Clones is Zam Wesell VC30. This is just a really cool figure, and of course the card back is awesome as well. Let's take a look at that card back. I love the popping colors behind her, the action pose aiming right at you with just her eyeline exposed. It looks awesome. And then looking over at the figure, yes, it's a little bit outdated, but this figure is awesome because of all the accessories. She comes with binoculars, a changeable head, you know, because she's a changeling, 2 different veils, one to cover her face and one to have it kind of the side. I like all the tubing and everything attached to her outfit there. She's got a really cool comma. She's got the long bow rifle, and she's got a blaster pistol. I mean, this is what it's all about. It is awesome, and she looks good. It's a little bit outdated with the face, but she looks great. VC30, there's her original release from Power of the Jedi, and there's a look at some of the rest of the wave from this release. But yeah, because of all the accessories, because she looks cool, and it's amazing card back, easily my number 1 favorite current release for TVC from Attack of the Clones. Alright, so now it's time to finally get into what we're really here for, and that is to discuss the characters that we do not have in the Vintage Collection from Attack of the Clones. And once again, this is going to be a discussion of the most significant characters from the film, or at least most iconic versions of characters specifically from Attack of the Clones, yet to have been released in the Vintage Collection. Now, there may be a few exceptions in this topic, and a great example is Yoda. Spoiler alert, Yoda is not on my list. Obviously, he is a very significant character in the Attack of the Clones, but the reason I'm not choosing him is because he really doesn't have a different look from a release we already have from Revenge of the Sith. And so I don't think there's as much of a void for the character if he has another release from a different film when that character looks exactly the same from film to film, in which case I think Yoda does between episodes 2 and 3. If you disagree and think Yoda definitely needs an Attack of the Clones release, let me know in the comments and let me know why. Alright, so as I typically do, I'm kicking things off with an honorable mention, and I chose Wat Tambor for my honorable mention. And yes, he's not that much of a significant character from the film. However, I think Count Dooku's War Council is a significant part of the film. And of those characters, I thought Wat Tambor made the biggest impression on me. And he's a very cool looking alien. So I wanted to choose at least one character from the War Council to put in here. So I chose Wat Tambor. Now, the most recent release we've got for Wat Tambor is the only release, and that is from the 2003 Saga line. And I'm just really surprised Hasbro never made another version of Wat Tambor, because he's just such a cool and interesting looking alien to me. Plus, he does show up in episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, as well. So I think it's definitely warranted for Hasbro to give us an all new Wat Tambor in the Vintage Collection, but I put him as my honorable mention since he isn't that much of a significant character by the standards I'm going by for this video. Alright, so getting into my top 5, at number 5, I have Boba Fett. You're probably asking yourself, really? Boba Fett?
Yep.
But he does share some very important scenes in the movie when Obi-Wan is investigating the creation of the clone army. Obviously, the fight scene with Jango Fett where they're trying to escape Kamino. And then, of course, the death of his father, Jango Fett. And let's face it, it's Boba Fett. He is significant to the majority of the Star Wars community, and so it was a very interesting twist to introduce him into the movie and where he came from, being a direct, unaltered clone of Jango Fett. And so I think this is a very significant character from the film. And the last time we had a young Boba Fett action figure release was in 2010 with the Legacy of the Dark Side 2-pack for Boba Fett, Orphan to Bounty Hunter. And I think it was simply just a repack of the original 2002 Saga line release. It looks very suspicious. I wasn't able to confirm it, but I'm pretty sure it's a repack for that. And so an update in the vintage collection would be nice. Coming in at number 4, I have Dexter Jetster. Say that 3 times fast. And I basically picked Dexter because I think it is a very significant scene that he's in with Obi-Wan, where he helps Obi-Wan figure out that the assassin is from Kamino. And whether you like Dexter or not, you have to admit he was a very memorable character that really stood out in the film. And the last time we got an action figure of Dexter Jetster was actually his original release from that 2002 Saga line, and so he's well overdue for an update. And if Hasbro invested in an all-new mold for Dexter, he could easily be reused for a Pong Krell figure, who is a very popular character from the Clone Wars that a lot of collectors would like to see get made in TVC. And at number 3, I have Poggle the Lesser. Now, Poggle the Lesser is the leader of the Geonosians. Obviously, Geonosis is a major part of the film. It's basically the entire third act of Attack of the Clones. He is the most important Geonosian in the film. He's also one of Dooku's main partners for the Separatists. He even has the Death Star plans that he hands off to Dooku towards the end there. So I think it's a pretty obvious void that we do not have Poggle the Lesser in the line. Now, the last time we got a Poggle the Lesser figure from Hasbro was in the 2006 Saga Collection line. It's an okay figure. I don't think they got the paint apps correct. And so I think it is time for a more accurate, updated version of Poggle the Lesser in the vintage collection. Now, I mentioned before that this list is not just about significant characters missing, but also iconic versions of characters missing. And so for number 2, I have Padme Amidala in her Droid Factory outfit. Now, I think this is her most iconic look for Attack of the Clones. And you can argue it could also be the arena version where her shirt gets ripped, exposing her midriff, and her cloak is gone. But I prefer this version, plus it's kind of leads to more accessories. I just think it's a really cool outfit. So this is what I think about when I think of Padme in Attack of the Clones. And the last time Hasbro put out this version of Padme was in the 2009 Legacy Collection. And if you think the arena version is the more iconic look, they did put out a Black Series 3.75 version of that Padme. But again, I still think the full version of that outfit is still the more iconic look. But let me know in the comments if you disagree. And coming in at number 1, I'm cheating a little bit because it is a tie for me with Lama Su or Taun We.
Dad, Taun We's here.
Whoop. The title of the film is Attack of the Clones. This is about the start of the Clone Wars, and you would not have any clones were it not for the Kaminoans. And to me, both of these characters are equally as important. You have Lama Su, who is the Prime Minister of Kamino, so he is the top dog. And then you have Taun We, who's the administrator of the clone facility, so she's very important. And they both share about equal amount of screen time in the film. And, you know, if you made one, you could easily make the other using the mold. So I think both of these should come into the line. I wouldn't mind seeing them being released in a 2-pack. Now, the last time Hasbro put out a figure for Taun We and for Lama Su was the only time, and that was in the 2002 Saga line. So you had Taun We by herself, where she came with a little embryo canister, and then you had a Lama Su release, which also came with a young clone. So both of these are well overdue for updated figures, and they're really cool aliens, and because it's Attack of the Clones and these guys made the clones, I think they're the most significant characters from the film yet to be in the vintage collection. Alright, so there's another look at my top 5 most missing in action figure form characters from Attack of the Clones. Alright, so that's going to do it for this episode of Brett on Fett. Let me know in the comments what you think the most important characters from Attack of the Clones are still missing from the vintage collection. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Thank you to my subscribers. Don't forget you can also follow me on Instagram and on X. Take care, and we'll see you next time.